with some difficulty that I find is that we give too much importance to who's speaking. If you can, don't do it. And who's speaking is here to transmit to you a teaching that is infinitely bigger than him, and not to do some form of self-promotion. I can understand a bit of importance to the person, but the most important thing is the teaching. If you give too much importance to the person, you lose the teaching that flows through him, that is much more important than him. So the teaching is definitely more important than the teacher. But the teaching itself, at some point, has to be let go of. The Christian mystics, they say that at that point, grace comes. And we've made Christianism into recipes, silly, superficial, that we may have needed in other times, but that now we can overcome with love. St. Augustine called it grace, and it flowers in people that make theirs these teachings that are transcendental, and that will try to transmit today without too many complications if possible, but that then free themselves from the teaching itself. So imagine how not easy it is to let go of the teaching if you're attached to the teacher. Please let me start like this, speaking about this beautiful thing that is happening. And I like to say it like this: between who is growing in this beautiful time of global awakening, I just call it simply new emerging consciousness, like Eckhart Tolle calls it, a very antique, very ancient. So the word new is a bit correct and a bit not. This new emerging consciousness, always more people go from the path of experience to the path of grace. If you're clothing on a chair, you can have an intuition of all of this, because it's extremely deep. So I wouldn't really want to speak to clothing. Be present. What's the path of experience? It's the so-called karma path. You go through lives and lives in which you go through amazing experience, good or bad. It's just an interpretation of the person. But the experience is used to grow, and that's fundamentally the way in which we have been growing for centuries, through experiences, and most people probably are still growing this way. These experiences, going through them and living them, bring some amount of suffering. But it's flowering more and more, it's being rediscovered, the path of grace. Grace, fundamentally, isn't, oh, Saint Gennaro, help me, please, give me a grace. Grace is fundamentally not needing experiences, because I've already understood. So, in a certain sense, grace is a leap. You don't need to go through so many experiences. You've already done it for so many lives. But in the new and ancient emerging new consciousness, you leap, you jump into a path that has no path, obviously, in which these experiences you don't need anymore, because you've already received the lesson that the experience would give you. Can you see the immensity of it? If you're only clothing on a chair, you can't. Very few people go through experiences, but very, very, even fewer that go beyond experiences. And I'd like to torture you on this today, and many people may get up and leave, but that's fine. The very few people that, fortunately more, that grow, may not need experiences to grow more. That means not needing spiritual experiences that are not an objective, they're only an instrument, and that has to be transcended as well. After that phase, there is no more teaching. Only grace stays. So there's no more effort to go up, but something takes us up naturally, without even us wanting it or desiring it, or do something that is spiritual to reach an objective, which is, in quotes, spiritual. For centuries, many of us were yogis, renunciant, priests, teachers, always linked to a path that means going through many experiences. And many of you believe that you only need experiences to grow. It's the slowest path. It's the way of karma. In India, they call it karma yoga. And paradoxically, is about serving other people rather than taking care of your own karma. But the path of comprehension, of understanding, is the more refined for people or not people. I'll explain this better. Please let me repeat. I don't need these experiences because I've already realized what the experience more slowly would want to teach me. In some traditions like Zen, this is called transmitting Satori. You don't need experiences. You can jump over. You don't need to live them all. Even when you live them, you learn very little. If you're a bit more aware, you'll learn more. But who is experiencing is not yet known. And slowly, your attention moves from who you think you are to who you are, and experiences are not needed anymore. So literally, like they say in India, you burn karma, in the sense that you don't need experiences anymore. So all the experiences that you would have needed to encounter going through there are jumped, not by your effort, because it isn't yours, but through grace, through a gift that is called grace. And at the root of the word is thank you, because there's a spontaneous gratitude, grace. What I'd like to transmit isn't something that is superficial, and I'd like to say it's not mine, but it's my way, the way I feel it, of the teachings of an incredible master, Ramana Maharshi, that I deeply love and that I owe a lot to, together to the great Father Ballester and the great Fabio Romano, that also led me to find all of this out. Now I'm going to try and explain a little bit better. If you want to ask some questions, you'll have some time later. They shouldn't be philosophical. They shouldn't show how much you know. They should just help others and yourselves, yours and yourselves, to understand. I'll take a little extra step. What is the difference between understanding and discovering? How much spiritual knowledge do you have in your head? I mean, I don't know how much it is, but I know it's too much. You know too many spiritual things, and really, you're not in contact with who you really are. You know it, but you haven't discovered it. If Einstein, and I'm a physicist, so I speak about physics a lot, if he discovers the theory of relativity, it works for you, even if you haven't discovered. If you go in a plane and you know nothing about aerodynamics, about the theorem of Bernoulli that keeps the plane up, or fluid dynamic, you can still go to the States. You don't need to know anything about the airplane, because somebody knows and discovered for you, okay? You can put a Coke in the fridge and make it cooler, even if you don't know anything about thermodynamics, because somebody's discovered it for you and has created these amazing machines, thermodynamic machines that are fridges. You may not know anything about Maxwell, electromagnetics, that beautiful equations, but you can still turn the light on and you can make phone calls with cell phones. You don't need to know anything about electromagnetism because somebody discovered it for you, and it's a beautiful thing, but internally nobody can discover it for you. So you substitute discovering with knowing, and you know a lot of things, but you haven't discovered them. And I don't want to offend you. Knowing a lot of spiritual things doesn't make you free, and this means that there is no spirit yet. It's very simple, and I'll try to explain it a bit better. I always make a comparison with wood. Wood can be turned on, and when it's turned on, emits light and heat. Light, esoterically, is wisdom, the deep vision, and heat, esoterically, is love. Light and heat. But if you don't turn on the wood, you won't have light or heat, but only weight. A spiritual weight that wasn't there to let you know things, but let you discover them. So the wood discovers, that disappears, and there's only heat and light. Can you follow me? Mastery is not knowing everything about chakras or who built pyramids, isn't it? Mastery comes only when you discover something that cannot be said, but that mysteriously will push all of your life in the direction of trying to express it. In the 10 minutes that will follow, it could be a bit difficult what I'm trying to transmit. Try to follow me. If you are like clothing on a chair, you will not be able. Who is the person that you are? If I go to the university, I'll be a different person from who doesn't go to university. If I travel a lot, I'll be a different person compared to somebody that doesn't travel. I can come back and say, whoa, Malaysia's beautiful. How amazing the Grand Canyon in the US. I saw the trees, and these experiences make me better. If I live some experiences, some relationships, some deep friendships or loves, all of this makes me better a lot compared, for example, to somebody who's closed in a room all their life. But somehow, I've never discovered something that cannot improve or get worse, but that simply is. And as such, this something cannot be touched by experience. Because experience is something that makes you better, like going to Borneo or Grand Canyon, Australia, Florence. So the person that you are here now is a togetherness of experiences, good and bad, even amazing, but these experiences have created the person that you are, the way you are now. But what's the essence of being conditioned? Try to follow me, I know it's not easy. Is that you believe to be a person that gets better. And you believe that spirituality, so experiences that are spiritual, make you a spiritual person. You have the illusion of this, but spirituality, the authentic one, is the end of experiences, because it's something that is beyond time, and that doesn't mean a person getting better, but in the fact that you're not a person, and that being a person, you've been dreaming it for so many lives, but it's still a dream. So spirituality, when you're children, is something that makes you spiritual people. You go to the States and you have a certain type of experience. You go to university and you have a certain type of experience, you become a different person, and it's beautiful. But then you think that you have spiritual experiences and you become spiritual people. And that's the mistake. Relatively, because it's still fine. But who is ready to go beyond? Spirituality is not a spiritual experience that makes you a spiritual person. Spirituality is seeing you're not a person, that you've never been, and that the person improves, but the being that you are is underneath and doesn't get better or worse because it's beyond time, and improving happens in time, within time. So if you can see it, spirituality isn't becoming a spiritual person or knowing spiritual things. It's realizing who you are. You've never been people. The person is an accumulation of your past, of what you've done, of your yoga, of your meditations, of trying to find spiritual experiences that are experiences, and they make the person more beautiful, but they won't let you touch who you are. So if you can understand it, please do not get offended. They make you better, but they don't free you. I believe that spirituality should be rediscovered, not as an instrument that makes you a better person, but that frees you from the person that you are. This freedom, in very deeply words, is called by Buddha nirvana. And this can be experimented when outwardly you still look like persons or people. I'm finished. Goodbye, everybody. No, I'm kidding. Please don't be too serious. Be aware, but not too serious, because these things very rarely are said, and all these things are rarely told, and your head is filled with heavy spiritual knowledge, but you live with a conscious level of a ham. When you start to have the first enlightenments that you are not a person, something very beautiful happens, an amazing compassion for people. You don't attack them. You don't have anything against them. Incredibly, there's a higher degree of respect. And that's compassion that Buddha speaks about. It's not what you would believe to be good, kind. All these things make you a spiritual person, but you're still a person, a nice person, but that will finish with time. Can you see this? Spirituality, like Buddha says, is a handful of leaves, those that free you, and not knowing everything about spirituality. So I have a question. Isn't it that maybe you know too many things? And that knowledge, instead of helping you turn the fire on, it makes it difficult to turn on. In fact, when the chimney is too full of wood, it doesn't turn on and it just makes smoke. So because I have my head full of experiences, I put other things on top that speak about freeing myself from spiritual things. But to free yourself, you shouldn't put those things on top of him, like how I'm asking you to. You need to kind of move your head just slightly, and the things will fall by themselves. And moving your head means also changing your point of view. How can you turn on the wood? With the clicks. I use this word. Click. Simple words. You like very big words. Enlightenment, seventh chakra. Instead of filling yourself with spiritual words, but living like hams. Can you see it? If you're getting offended, it's a sign that your level of consciousness is very low. In fact, you're still getting offended. I'm a bit harsh, but my master is much harsher with me. And today, I thank him very much. I tilt my head and the weight falls down. Or I turn the wood on and this gives heat and light. The clicks that I'm simply trying to transmit, not to let you understand, because you've already understood so many things, are aimed at turning the wood on and not at adding more wood. Let's go back to experience. I have an experience, a spiritual one, and you have an experience of a beautiful trip, and she does an experience of a beautiful study and faculty at university. All of this makes us different people, and it's all beautiful. Who's speaking is not against this. However, says Ramana Maharshi, everything that becomes isn't real. Can you understand? I understood it the way I'm saying it, and I don't believe you should understand it the way I understood it, but I just want to transmit it. The person goes to the gym and becomes more beautiful, loses weight, puts on muscles, then goes to the hairdresser and becomes more beautiful. The person tries to improve. But you have an illusion that spirituality is to make you better. First, you were a material person because you had material experiences. Now with spirituality, don't offend yourself. You're a master of this and a master of that, but you're not awake yet. You don't know who you are beyond becoming. You sleep while you speak about awakening. You don't even have the intuition of awakening. You think it's something you need to reach, and that sometime it will happen with time. If I improve the dream, I don't wake up from the dream. If in the dream I become a better person, I don't wake up from the dream. Do you understand? Buddha, the true masters that I love so much, never spoke about improving. They always spoke about transcending who you believe you are. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. Buddha called it nirvana. Beautiful languages. But today, we don't understand them yet because we sleep. We still have the idea that we have to improve as people. We still have the idea that we are people. And I'd like to close this first part, hopefully that you won't throw tomatoes at me, indicating this other beautiful phrase of Ramana Maharshi, this very humble, great yogi that has physical elements, thinking that yoga means having a body and shape. It's ridiculous. And this true great yogi said, you're not here to be this or that. You're here to be. Now observe this phrase and connect it with what we've said up to now. The person wants to be this, wants to be that, and is desiring experiences that will transform him in that, so that it doesn't have to be this. So there's another question that connects. Have you ever touched something that never changes, that doesn't become something else, that doesn't improve? This something is the without time, because becoming something requires time, isn't it? But the without time, the eternal, we think of something very long, so becoming something all the time. But when you start to have the intuition of this, you'll see that eternity, it isn't eternally becoming something, but exiting time in which you become. There's a beauty here, if you see it, that is more beautiful than a piece of Mozart, that is more beautiful than a painting of Caravaggio, that is more beautiful than a poetry from Giacomo Leopardi. But if you don't discover it, who will discover it for you? can you for one moment escape from becoming, exit becoming? Can you have the intuition of something that doesn't become? Christians, the Christians of the origins, that say that that is God in you. It's beautiful, but we've transformed it into a moral story and believing a lot to religion and hoping that somebody sends it well. And that's called grace. When grace is the leap from the person that I believe to be, that lives in time, that with time tries to become better, to who I am without time. If I can see it, seeing it is making it true, and not the effort.